The first piece that we want to talk about is the fact that it is truly a puzzle. And a puzzle is probably an understatement. It's going to be more like a Rubik's Cube or some of those other games when you move one piece, the other piece moves. So you'll see here, these are the subcommittees that we put together. We have food service and nutrition, students and schedules, physical space, transportation, student and employment, safety point of care, and testing and health. So what we've done to this point is we've put out several thought exchanges. We've had a thought exchange out to our community to hear what our community has to say about reopening, some of their concerns, some of their questions. We also did that with our staff as well. Most recently, we sent out a survey as well on who intends to send their students back to school. So this week, what we were able to do, and we'll be notifying people in the very near future on what committee they're going to serve if they volunteered. We went through a facilitator training. So we had Mike Ford, who currently works from the University of Rochester. You've met him before. He's facilitated some board work for some of us. And he helped lead us through a training of facilitators for the individuals that'll be facilitating those subcommittees. So that was great. And I'll be sending you in the Friday Confidential some additional data points from the thought exchange if you'd like to see that and be able to analyze that on your own. So this is the staff. This is a word bubble. This is one of the ways the thought exchange makes a clean visual for you to see what's important for staff. The bigger words mean that they've been starred more frequently and are a bigger thought or concern of our staff. So you can see supplies and cleaning of the facilities, and then also washing hands. And you could see as the words get smaller, they were less of a focus and received less stars in their rating through the thought exchange. So just to give you the quantitative information, we had 341 participants. We currently employ just over 900 individuals. So that kind of can help you gauge who took the time to share their feedback. Out of those 341 participants, we had 458 share thoughts. And then as you've used Thought Exchange before, you can go in and rate the comments that you support or don't necessarily support. And you can see that we had just over 15,000 ratings happen on those 458 thoughts. So the top 5, and I'll send you the entire document so that you have the opportunity to look at it if you're interested. So the question was, what are your thoughts and concerns as the district develops our reopening plan? Supplies was number 1. Teachers need access to good facial tissues, paper towels, and general cleaning supplies. The number of cleaning staff should be increased. PPE, there's definitely a concern on what will be provided, what will be expected. And then the planning for reopening needs to look different at each of the different levels, elementary, middle, and high school. So there have been a lot of thoughts, and you'll see a lot of crossover too with the community feedback that they definitely want to see our K-6 students back in person. They're a little more flexible. I think they want our high school students. Everybody wants everything to go back to normal. So let's just put that aside. But they would be more tolerant if we were to move forward with maybe a split schedule at the high school. It's really, it does boil down a lot to childcare. And as we reopen and individuals going back to work, making sure that their children can come to school, and more of a comfort level of some of the older students being able to do some things on their own if necessary. And then you'll see under staffing, sick day protocols and really what that looks like. So there's a lot of work to be done, but this just really quickly highlights the top 5 thoughts of the staff. And like I said, I'll give you that additional information this Friday. So then you look at very similar word bubble as well, and you'll see under the community, you're going to see mental health is a very big concern for our community. They realize that being in lockdown or quarantine has had a negative impact on their students. They value the social and emotional aspect of what school districts provide for students, and that goes hand in hand with the word interaction. Wanting to make sure that they have interaction with their teachers and their support staff, and also fellow students. And then you can see washing hands is going to be extremely important. Some sense of normalcy. Learning is clearly important over to the right, and you can see that sanitizer and moving kind of further out to those smaller words have shared some of their less rated concerns. So community participation, we do have a very large community. We have 4,500 students, so imagine how many parents and guardians and families we have. So out of that group, we had 911 participants. This was sent out multiple times in Friday communication with the families. I also sent a standalone email the last week before we closed out the thought exchange, just for folks who got concerned about being able to pull that out of a communication that had multiple communication points in it. Out of that, you had 1,250 thoughts, and what's real interesting, the number of ratings. You have close to 37,000 ratings. So people who are interested in having input took the time to give this input. And I just want to remind everyone, this is one data point. We've been continuing to take a look at some of the other best practices and other research out there, whether it's from Germany or some of the other states who have reopened and have a plan in place. So our main themes in the top 5 for the community is, once again, that I touched on this already, the social, emotional, and face-to-face learning. If that is possible, we clearly want to do that. If it comes with different factors such as masking and social distancing, we still want to make sure that we're bringing kids back together if possible. The next one is people recognizing that there are going to be changes. So sometimes we get concerned that people aren't going to realize that things are going to look different and they're going to look the same. But even though things are going to look different, they're concerned for our students' mental health. And another top priority is hand washing. And we believe that we could do some simple things to really support. I'm going to exaggerate a little bit here, but it may be a classroom hand washing, every couple hours, or some of the regular hand hygiene amped up a little bit that we would want everybody to practice. I think COVID has really given us a great reminder. I believe I read somewhere, if we use the hand cleansing techniques that we've implemented for COVID-19, the common strain of the flu would be much less than it currently is, because people just don't tend to wash their hands. So being very thoughtful in how we make sure that we have those practices. The community was very pleased with the opportunity to share their thoughts, and they want to have a balance of safety without stressing out the students further. And that'll clearly be a balancing act, but those are the main threads from the community at this point in time. So the font's a little small in this. You have this document already, but this really, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the structure. So you're going to see an overarching governance team, which is the COVID-19 Rapid Response Team. On that team is the executive leadership, the Board of Education president, the president of the Teachers Association, and also the SRPs. Tracy Zabadel, who is taking a lead with some of our planning, and then also the vice presidents of the associations as well. So really the thought process for that overarching committee is to have each one of these subcommittees share out their work with that committee, and there'll be a feedback cycle. We're going to be meeting this week with the facilitators of each of those committees to set the expectation. And I'll give a very quick example. I may have given it in the past, and I apologize. But food service and nutrition team, we're really not going to be asking people their input on the menus. And so it's not, is it going to be pizza and fish sticks or peanut butter and jelly? It's going to be, if we serve lunches to the students in a self-contained classroom, how are we going to do that? How are we going to get the food there? How are we going to clean up after? There's going to be contractual stipulations. How do we cover that teacher's lunch that they have the right to in their contract? So that'll be some of the work that comes out of there. We are starting our 2 first teams that we're going to actually build the foundation with are the physical space team and the student employee safety point of care testing and healthcare teams. We feel if we establish a pretty good foundation there, that we should be able to have the other 3 teams start to chime in. And in that first slide, you saw the puzzle pieces. We realize that none of these are going to stand alone. There can be a decision made in one committee that's going to impact another committee. So we have to be very fluid with that. Another point is we realize that we will be getting guidance at some point in time from New York State. and also from the state education department. But we feel that it's vital for the Hilton community to get this work started. We will be setting an artificial timeline, which we'll be able to monitor and adjust. We're really looking to have a large chunk of that work done by the third week in July. So at that time, we would be in a holding pattern and wait for final guidance from the state. And then we would hopefully be able to tweak a few things here or there and not have to start from scratch. But as you know, things can change quickly, especially with the way that the governor sometimes communicates that information. And then really what we would plan on in August is an all-out communication blitz as far as policy, procedure, and getting information out to families. We're looking to put together an online guide for families and then also a mailer that would go home so that everyone would be clear on what the expectations come September. And also the COVID rapid response team is called that because we realize that we are preparing multiple parallel scenarios and that we may get back in September and have to go into a 4-week quarantine in October. But we want to be able to mobilize these folks so that we can move very quickly in that decision making. And you can also see on each of those teams, if you're interested, and I know many of you have shared with me, we'll be letting you know what subcommittee that you're serving on. And we really appreciate your perspective into some of those decisions that'll be made. So that's just kind of the overview of where we're at. So we're hitting the ground running. We're hoping to be thoughtful with this process, but also the summer's going to go much quicker than anybody would want it to as you're planning for reopening. And I'll continue to keep you updated. My goal is whether at our next meeting or even if we have to schedule a special meeting, being able to give you that executive report so you can ask any questions that you might have before we go live with the reopening plan.